Welcome, I'm Tatiana Darzi. Records from the U.S. Department of Justice show that China Daily, a CCP-based English language newspaper, paid nearly $19 million to U.S. media companies for advertising in the past 4 years. Paid supplements with a pro-Beijing agenda produced by China Daily were published in newspapers such as the Washington Post and the Wall Street Journal, masquerading as news articles.
According to documents submitted by the U.S. Department of Justice, Chinese state-run media China Daily paid American newspapers and media nearly $19 million USD for advertising and printing expenses over the past 4 years. Daily Caller, an American news and commentary website, reported the findings on June 8th, posting China Daily, an English-language newspaper controlled by the Chinese Communist Party, has paid more than $4.6 million to the Washington Post and nearly $6 million to the Wall Street Journal since November 2016. Both newspapers publish pay supplements that China Daily produces called China Watch. The inserts are designed to look like news articles, but they often contain a pro-Beijing spin on contemporary news events. China Daily also paid for advertising in several other newspapers. The New York Times, $50,000. Foreign Policy, $240,000. The Des Moines Register, $34,600. And CQ Roll Call, $76,000.
Ideally, having things done is actually better than having great advertisements. The CCP brags in the international community, trying to fool some people who do not know the real situation in China. Such a system, like the CCP's, can never solve any problems hidden in society. So, no matter how much it brags, it will never cover up the conflicts within society. Although it spends large amounts of money overseas to decorate itself, it is actually trying to cover up the rotten economy inside China.
China Daily spent a total of $11,002,628 on advertising in U.S. newspapers and another $265,822 on advertising through Twitter.
The Chinese Communist Party spreads its corrupt culture by spending huge amounts of money in foreign countries. It advocates the so-called money diplomacy with the UN, the WHO, and South Africa, and other countries. This money diplomacy actually bribes political leaders and officials from the UN and from the WHO with benefits and money so that they will speak out for the CCP and distort facts and the truth. Its aim is to become a legitimate regime. The CCP continues to spend money overseas while being careless about the lives of the Chinese people. Initially, when the UN did not acknowledge its existence, it used this exact method to buy out small countries who then later stood up for it. The CCP doesn't care about the Chinese people. So many people died from hunger during the Great Leap Forward and in the Great Chinese Famine, 1958 to 1962, and it did not give a damn. It only cares about the legitimacy and the stability of its political power.
China Daily also paid out more than $7.6 million to newspapers and printing companies to produce its newspapers for U.S.-based readers, the Justice Department's filings show. The Los Angeles Times, the Seattle Times, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, the Chicago Tribune, the Houston Chronicle, and the Boston Globe are all listed as clients of China Daily.
The American people are not going to be easily fooled by the CCP because everyone knows its political system has no democracy, no independent legislature, and no media freedom. There's a saying in Chinese, the truth that is written in blood cannot be covered up by lies written in ink.
Huang also criticized the CCP for lying to the world by trying to portray peace.
Definitely, the Chinese people want the government to spend money within the country, help the poor, and assist the small and medium businesses. They hope that the government can actually improve their standard of living and develop the economy. Lying to the world is useless because the entire world has become wiser now.
Freedom House and the Hoover Institute of Stanford University have sent out warnings about the CCP spreading its political propaganda through American media and even pinpoint China Daily as the Chinese main propaganda agency. For many years, the U.S. Department of Justice has told China Daily to comply with the Foreign Agents Registration Act, FARA, and to declare its activities every 6 months. Now, during the CCP pandemic, China Daily and other Chinese state-run media are being subjected to greater censorship by the U.S. government.
4 Chinese state-run media outlets have been designated as foreign embassies by the United States. These media outlets, among several others, have been operated by the Chinese regime as propaganda machines to disseminate pro-CCP ideology and propaganda.
After listing 5 state-run Chinese media outlets as foreign embassies in February, the United States will designate at least 4 additional state-run Chinese media outlets as foreign embassies, including China Central Television, CCTV, the top state-owned network, and China News Service, the country's second-largest state-owned news agency. The U.S. also placed new restrictions on 33 Chinese firms and institutions that were announced last month. The new restrictions took effect on Friday, June 5th. In an article published on June 3rd, Reuters quoted 3 people familiar with the matter who said the U.S. will designate at least 4 more state-run Chinese media outlets as foreign embassies, increasing restrictions on their operations on American soil. This is the latest development in a months-long media conflict between the United States and China. In February this year, 5 state-run Chinese media outlets were enlisted as foreign embassies. These media outlets are Xinhua News Agency, China Global Television Network, previously known as CCTV, China Radio International, the parent company of China Daily Newspaper, and Haitian Development USA Incorporated, the parent company of the People's Daily Newspaper. The U.S. alleged that these media were used by the Chinese Communist Party to disseminate pro-Beijing propaganda.
In the West, these state-run media outlets do not report news. They are the propaganda machines in the Chinese Communist regime and the mouthpieces of the country or of the party.
Michael McCow, top Republican on the House of Representatives Foreign Affairs Committee, said, "These are Chinese Communist Party propaganda outlets that peddle dangerous information to grow the party's power, not report the news." He Liangmao, who's also the former chief editor of Tsingtao Daily Newspaper, explained that these CCP mouthpieces often distort the content of the news and even falsify it, taking it out of context to create fake news or use advertisements to achieve their propaganda objectives.
They were packaged as news media outlets in foreign countries to spread and promote the ideology of the CCP. In the open societies in the West, fake news or propaganda are not allowed, especially in the Western media. News and advertisement are strictly separated. They are not allowed to be mixed together.
According to the U.S. 1982 Foreign Missions Act, these Chinese officials, whether they are U.S. citizens or not, must report personal information on their employees to the U.S. Department of State and the turnover situation of their staff, including new and laid-off employees, as soon as they are listed in the foreign missions list. These media outlets are also required to register a list of properties owned or leased within the U.S. to the Department of State, and they will have to be granted permission from the Department of State before purchasing or leasing any new properties. These exact regulations are also applied by the United States to foreign embassies, but these propaganda agencies do not enjoy any diplomatic status in the United States.
This is how the United States can stop the Chinese Communist Party from using the media to infiltrate, sabotage, and even spy in other foreign countries.
In addition to tightening the restrictions on state-run Chinese media outlets, the U.S. Department of Commerce also enacted new economic restrictions on 33 CCP-affiliated companies and research institutions on June 5th. These sanctioned companies and institutions are not allowed to use U.S. technology unless they are granted permission beforehand by the U.S. government. The Commerce Department blacklisted these 33 Chinese state-owned companies on May 22nd for violating and abusing human rights or helping purchase weapons of mass destruction and resources needed by the People's Liberation Army of China, thus threatening the national security of the United States.
This action done by the U.S. means a new Cold War has begun. The so-called new Cold War is all about microchips, technology, and trade. You can say they are silent wars. This puts huge pressure on the CCP.
Professor Lee indicated that the series of sanctions imposed by the U.S. not only crack down on the so-called rise, which is a result of many illegal and improper actions of the CCP, but also curbs the CCP's power to intimidate the world. Chinese state-owned companies and agencies listed in the entity list include the Institute of Forensic Science Ministry of Public Security, supercomputer manufacturer Beijing Jisuan Science Research Center, Qihu 360 Technology Company, Internet surveillance provider NetPosa Technologies, and many more. Professor Li believes that more new U.S. restrictions imposed on Chinese propaganda agencies and the expansion of the blacklist of Chinese state-run technology companies will serve as a model for other Western countries. He feels all free democratic countries around the world should work together to stop the spread of the CCP, crack down on the totalitarian Chinese communist regime, and help allow Chinese people to live a free and democratic life.
Many European countries are now awakening to the Chinese Communist Party's threat and have started to oppose the regime. The EU recently accused China and Russia of spreading disinformation to create tensions and interfere with the democratic system among European countries. These countries have also expressed their disapproval of the CCP's suppression of Hong Kong and Taiwan.
Recently, the European Union publicly accused Russia and China of spreading disinformation to affect democracy during the pandemic. Many European countries also disapprove of the way the Chinese Communist Party suppresses Hong Kong and Taiwan. Austrian media warned that Beijing's power to suppress freedom in Hong Kong and Taiwan will be used in the same way to affect the entire world in the future. Vice President of the European Commission for Values and Transparency, Vera Jourova, and the High Representative of the European Union, Josep Borrell, conducted a joint video press conference on June 10th, publicly accusing Russia and China of spreading false information during the pandemic.
The coronavirus pandemic has been accompanied by a massive infodemic. We have witnessed a wave of false and misleading information, hoaxes and conspiracy theories, as well as targeted influence operations by foreign actors. Some of this is aimed at harming the European Union and its member states.
Well, as for the actors and the foreign actors and foreign forces, we are clearly mentioning Russia and China, and we have sufficient evidence to do such a declaration. It's very well evidence-based.
On June 10th, the European Union released a new strategic document in which it accused Beijing and Moscow of targeting the EU, the adjacent area, and even the entire world to spread disinformation and propaganda to influence actions. Virginie Batu Henriksen, the spokesperson for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy for the European Commission, expressed her dissatisfaction with the CCP's selective reporting in an interview with South China Morning Post. She said that Chinese officials keep propagating that China and Europe are not systemic rivals, but comprehensive strategic partners, but that the EU formulated a policy last year that described the CCP as a systemic rivalry. Current affairs commentator residing in the U.S., Xing Tianxing, explained that the CCP virus pandemic, the cover-up of the virus, and mask diplomacy and wolf diplomacy completely changed the EU's perspective on the Chinese Communist Party.
The EU's overall understanding of the CCP has aligned with the Trump administration's earlier understanding. We can see that in the future, the EU, the US, and the Five Eyes will form an even closer tie. A man's plan is not as good as God's plan. When the CCP has done everything in its power, it actually fastens its own isolation and destruction.
For the same reason, the CCP's investment activities in Eastern Europe are becoming sensitive and unwelcoming. Romania announced at the end of May that Nuclear Electria, the state-owned company, has to halt its agreement with China General Nuclear Power Group, CGNPG, to build a nuclear power plant, and that it would find a new partner for the project. Prime Minister of Romania, Ludovic Orban, also expressed that it is impossible to continue to cooperate with the CCP. This is the biggest setback to the Belt and Road Initiative in Eastern Europe. Another important project of the Belt and Road Initiative in Eastern Europe is the investment in Klaipėda port in Lithuania, where the Baltic Sea meets the Danube River. Beijing wanted to invest heavily in the transformation of the port, but this plan was unsuccessful. Since last year, countries around the Baltic Sea have named China and Russia as the main threats in national security reports. Besides the pandemic, the CCP's constant and intensifying suppression of Hong Kong and Taiwan has also triggered disapproval from European countries. Der Standard, an Austrian daily newspaper, published a commentary warning from Alexander Gorlow, a political science scholar, on June 9th, that just as the People's Republic is dealing with Hong Kong and Taiwan, it will be dealing with the rest of the world as soon as it has the power to do so. Those who love freedom cannot want that.
The global pandemic of the CCP virus has proved that the world is now punished by the power of the CCP. Why is the CCP brave enough to be careless of global democracy and human rights? It is because the CCP feels like it has control over the entire world through a globalized economy, including spending huge amounts of money and other methods.
This type of infiltration is not just about the CCP winning some economic and trade interests. It's really about the CCP wanting its ideology to have a global impact. They want to put their red flag all over the world. Presently, the CCP's impact is way more influential than it was half a century ago. So the entire world is actually in a very dangerous situation right now.
She indicated that when the world is fighting against the CCP virus together, they need to understand clearly that this virus came exactly from the tyranny of the Chinese Communist Party, and they have to resist, boycott, and abandon it. If the world ignores this fact, then similar tragedies will replay.
Chinese Communist Party leader Xi Jinping planned to visit Japan in April, but his trip has been postponed indefinitely due to the outbreak of the CCP virus. Many Japanese people told NTD television in interviews that Xi will not be welcome in Japan because of Beijing's intentional cover-up of the CCP virus, as well as its violations against human rights and freedom.
A planned state visit to Japan by Chinese Communist Party leader Xi Jinping seems to have been postponed indefinitely, but a number of Japanese citizens said in a recent television interview they see no need at all for Xi's visit, because recent incidents have exposed the Chinese Communist Party's true nature and lack of trustworthiness. Xi's visit to Japan, originally planned for early April, has been postponed due to the CCP virus pandemic. It is unlikely that Xi's plan to visit Japan will be resumed within the year. Although the Japanese government has not explicitly withdrawn the invitation for Xi's visit. However, several Japanese interviewed by NTD said they objected to Xi's visit, citing Beijing's suppression of information about the CCP virus, interference in Hong Kong's affairs, aggression in the South China Sea, and human rights violations and oppression of ethnic and religious minorities.
内臓持っていかれるとか、そんな考えられないようなこと平気でやるような国やし、そんなところ対等に喋るためにかなんか知らんけど、日本来る必要もないし来たらあかんと思いますわ、正直言うて。
日本の税金使ってほしくないですね。はい、大反対です。
私は絶対反対。香港の問題、一国二制度、あれがもうだんだんと習近平は本性を表してきた。
For the past 53 days, the Senkaku Islands have been invaded by Chinese ships every day.
ちょっと延期になって、このまま中止になってもらった方がいいなというふうに思っております。中国共産党はやることなすことすべて、賛成できないことが多いですね。
コロナの問題が出て。
Now, as the CCP virus spreads, the CCP has suppressed the truth about it. The communist regime is not trustworthy. Even ordinary Japanese people who do not care about politics have reached this broad consensus.
コロナウイルスのあれもね、武漢では絶対隠してる。あれ発生源は武漢。
チベットの人ですとかね、台湾の方、香港の方、あとウイグルの方に対して、何してるかって、ちょっとずつ世界にね、知られてるじゃないですか。
The Chinese Communist Party's cover-up led to a pandemic that now threatens the lives of people around the globe. With over 8 million people infected, China is still defensive about independent international inquiry into the origin and spread of the CCP virus. The Epoch Times has initiated a global, signed a petition campaign calling for investigating, condemning, and rejecting the CCP. We believe that investigating and exposing the truth is the only way that we can remain safe. Let's take action. Sign the petition at rejectccp.com. That's all for today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this program with friends and family to keep them informed about the latest news and updates. Thank you for joining me. See you next time.